Randy Travis was just going over the hill and heading down into the city where he grew up. It had been a little more than 3 years since he left Richland, and memories started to come back. He could see the Columbia River in front of him. His teen years spent on the river, rafting, tubing, skiing, and boating were some of his best times. He drove into town and passed his old high school. The sign said, "Home of the Richland Bombers." He had been a bomber. He played varsity football for 3 years at one of the best sports schools in the state. He didn't play basketball, but the team had won the state championship in 1979, his senior year. Randy had been an important part of the football team. He played linebacker and flanker, so he was almost always on the field. He didn't win any personal awards, but the team had a perfect 9-0 season. Then, they lost early in the playoffs to a team from Spokane. He had always been proud to be a bomber. There were many talks about where the team's nickname came from. History said the plutonium for the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was made in the Hanford area, just a few miles northwest of Richland. The government had made 2/3 of the country's plutonium there. Many said the bomber name was from the plane that dropped the bomb, but it was hard to miss the real meaning when the football helmets showed a big mushroom cloud with a bold letter R in front of it. Randy had laughed about that many times over the years. Next, he drove past the old F house where he grew up. The government had built houses fast in the 1940s and named each one with a letter. The F house was 2 stories with an unfinished basement and had about 1,400 square feet of space. Now he was inside the city, but happy memories were starting to mix with thoughts of a difficult night from 3 years ago. Randy met Sarah Hall during their junior year at Washington State. He was deep into computer programming, which was still new and changing fast at the time. Sarah was finishing her advanced education degree and was about to start teaching at a local elementary school. The Cougar football team often had ups and downs and wins and losses, but in 1981 they had a good season with 8 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. Randy and Sarah went to every home game. At one game, Randy was introduced to Sarah while everyone was hanging out in the parking lot before the game. They hit it off right away. They joked and talked during the second half of the game, then went with the crowd to get pizza afterward. After sharing a few beers, they kissed as if they had known each other for a long time. Sunday was a day to rest and both stayed apart. On Monday morning, the phone rang, and Sarah started the conversation with a friendly hello. "Randy, I had a great time on Saturday and hope we can do it again soon. What do you think?" "Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I didn't expect to meet someone like you that day in the field." "You know," Sarah said, "the unexpected things are the ones that make life better." Randy understood. She was clearly interested, and he felt the same. So he quickly asked, "I know it's Monday, but would you let me buy you dinner tonight so we can talk more?" "Good," Sarah laughed. "You're smarter than you look. I thought you'd never get the hint." That night, they became a couple. They spent nearly every day together until they graduated the next year. In 1984, they got married at a nice ceremony by the Columbia River at Howard Amon Park. Randy's best man was Jed Morrison, who worked with him at Battelle Laboratories. They had become good friends, and Jed often joined Randy and Sarah's house parties. Jed was married, too, to a local girl named Cindy, but most people called her Tinker. The name stuck because of the time she spent on the high school gymnastics team. The wedding night was happy for everyone, and the new couple enjoyed their time together. Starting married life was not always easy. Even before the wedding, Randy and Sarah had separate lives and hobbies, but they learned to adjust to one another's schedules and always supported each other. People who knew them wished their own relationships were this strong. Their daughter, Hayden, was born the summer after their second year of marriage. The timing worked well. Sarah had over 2 months off in the summer to spend with Hayden before school started again in September. The 3 of them spent many days at the park, pushing Hayden's stroller, proud and happy as a family. Near the end of August, Sarah sat down for dinner with Randy and brought up something that had been on her mind for days. "Do you know if anything is going on with Jed and Tinker?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "As far as I know, they're fine." "Well, I'm trying to figure this out. But I saw Tinker at the local when I went in for coffee last week. She wasn't alone. I don't know who the other person was, but they seemed very close and kept touching each other. It didn't seem right, like they were more familiar than they should be." "Wow," Randy said quietly. "I hope it's not what it looks like." Sadly, it was. Over the next few weeks, the news spread. They weren't sure what was true and what was just rumors. But Tinker had left Jed and moved in with the other person. Jed wasn't ready for this. She packed up her things and left, leaving only a short note and her wedding ring behind. It felt so cold and distant. Randy tried to imagine how Jed must be feeling, but really couldn't understand. Sarah had been very loyal to him, so the idea that something like this could happen didn't even cross his mind. He felt upset for his friend, but wasn't sure how to help. Hayden was now 18 and just a few weeks away from graduating. As a senior, Randy was proud that she was a second-generation bomber. She wasn't a cheerleader, though she was definitely attractive. Her interests were more about music. She played drums in the school band just for fun, but she felt it wasn't very challenging. She often felt like she was just hitting the same drum over and over while others played real notes. So she became the drummer and lead singer for a high school band called Iron Hayden. Randy loved the name and admired her for it. Since she was the only girl in the group, she was the main reason they had local fans. They weren't allowed to play in bars yet, but they got to perform at local festivals and a weekly summer event held on Thursdays called Live at 5. It was at one of those events that troubles began. Iron Hayden had grown popular nearby. Hayden started dressing in ways that drew a lot of attention, especially from guys much older than her. Between the music sets, some men would sneak her drinks and spend the 20-minute breaks talking to her and looking at her in ways that made Randy uncomfortable. She usually wore thin tops while performing. She thought that a bit of attention was worth the drinks she got. But some of the men, many in their 30s, could be too much sometimes. One night in late May, Hayden got home around 12:30 a.m., clearly having had too much to drink. One of her bandmates had driven her home but was too nervous to bring her inside. He gently laid her down on the front porch, rang the doorbell, and left before Randy and Sarah could open the door. "Hayden, what on earth is wrong with you?" Sarah yelled loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "Nothing's wrong. I just can't stand up right now," Hayden answered with a weak smile. Randy found it a little funny, but the situation wasn't. He picked up his daughter and brought her inside, setting her down in a chair that leaned back. "There's nothing wrong. You don't come home like this and act like it's okay," Sarah said, not ready to let it go. Randy stepped in carefully. "Let's wait until morning. Let her sleep first, then we can have a clear talk." "I don't think so." Sarah was upset and wasn't going to let this go. "My daughter isn't going to ruin her life or make bad choices. That won't happen, and you won't be in that band much longer." Hayden, a bit unsteady, said, "That spot's already taken, isn't it, Mom?" "What do you mean, honey? Did the band get a new drummer?" Sarah asked. "No way. I'm the only reason they stay together. They would never replace me." "So what spot is taken then?" Sarah was getting confused, and Hayden wasn't making it any easier with her rambling. "The bad reputation? That's taken. Right, Mom?" Sarah gasped quietly. "Go to your room, young lady. This isn't over. We will talk more in the morning when you can explain better." "Of course," Hayden said. "You're the one causing all the problems, and I'm the one in trouble. Good night." She went back to her room and soon was asleep. Sarah and Randy stayed quiet, not even looking at each other for a while. "Sarah, what does she mean?" Randy asked, feeling uneasy but wanting answers. "Nothing. She's drunk. Who knows what she's thinking?" "Well, you can tell me now or we wait until morning and get it from her." "Are you seeing someone else?" "Damn it. Yes. Is that what you want to hear? Your perfect wife is not perfect?" "No, that's not what I want to hear," Randy said, his voice getting louder. "I want to hear that my wife doesn't know what Hayden is talking about. I want to hear that you are still my wife in every way. Can you say that?" Sarah didn't know how to answer. She never thought this could happen. For 6 years, she had been seeing one of Randy's close friends only a few times a year, and they were careful. How did Hayden find out? And if she did, who else knew? Randy grabbed his keys and left quickly. He didn't want to think about it. How could it be true? He drove to a local bar and had the first of many drinks. People soon noticed he looked upset and asked what was wrong. After a while, he told a few close friends what happened. Both of the women said, "We thought you knew. They weren't very careful, and I think a lot of people already knew." That was it for Randy. He found a room to rest and sleep off the drinks. The next morning, as they sat around the table, Randy started the talk. "Just so you know, Sarah, Hayden isn't the only one who knows about you and Jed. Most of our friends seem to think badly of you, just like Hayden said when she called you the town trouble. If you want to say something, now is your chance," Randy said. Sarah began to cry and said, "I'm sorry, Randy. It was just something small between us, and it doesn't mean I don't love you. I really do." "No, you don't." "What?" "Yes, I do," she whispered. No. Someone who loves another person doesn't do this kind of thing. You don't love me. So let's stop pretending. Sarah tried to explain. I do love you. You mean everything to me. This wasn't about love, it was just something extra. He was upset after what happened with Tinker, and I wanted to comfort him as a friend. That's how it all started last night. That's not true. Do you even listen to yourself? How can I be everything to you if you need more? No, you're not a good person or wife, and I'm done with you. Randy turned and started packing for a few days away. He hadn't made a final decision, but knew he couldn't stay with Sarah. 6 years. How had it lasted so long without him knowing anything? Sarah sat at the kitchen table, her mind drifting. How did others know about her and Jed, and the name Town Trouble? How was that possible? If they only knew about Jed, it was just one person. That shouldn't make them think badly of her. But she knew it was more than Jed. It started with him, but soon others joined in. She remembered weekends tied to the bed, while Jed and his friends partied around her. She had enjoyed the attention. To be honest, she liked being part of it. At one wild party, she was tied up, blindfolded, and had her mouth covered. She didn't know who was near her that night. It was something she found thrilling, the feeling of trust mixed with danger. They played a game where she had to guess who was there, and if she was wrong, she would face a punishment. It took a long time to guess all the guests. She spent the night guessing and being corrected. It took days before she could wear anything that showed her legs without feeling self-conscious. Thinking about that night made her feel unsettled but alive. Looking back honestly, she had been involved with about 9 men during those 6 years. Now it had caught up with her, and she was about to lose Randy. That thought made her feel both sad and free to keep doing what she wanted. Randy shut the door hard and left. He thought he would be gone for just a few days, but now, as he drove back through town, 3 years had passed. With the help of a friend or two, he managed to get a job at PNNL and was starting work next Monday. That night, he stopped by some of his old favorite places to see if anyone remembered him. At 8 p.m., he walked into the Uptown bar. Not much looked different. The people inside seemed a bit younger, but that was normal. Randy sat down and ordered his first beer, planning to have many more. About 15 minutes later, a young woman came in. She looked around the room until she saw him. She walked straight over and sat down next to Randy. "Hi, Hayden," he said, surprised to see his daughter. "Well, Dad, I heard you were back. Long time no see," she said. "Yeah, it's been a while. I didn't think I'd find you here so fast. You've only been in town for 2 hours. I got the call 5 minutes after you came in. Don't forget, I'm 21 now and know everyone here." "I should have known someone would tell on me. That's just what this town does. What do you mean you know everyone?" "Looks like I have some daddy issues," she laughed. "This is one of the places I deal with that." "I don't want to hear any more about that. What do you want, Hayden?" "Just checking if it was true. If you were really back. Mom's probably getting calls like I did. How long until she shows up?" "I don't want to deal with that right now. I won't be here long." Randy paid his bill and walked to his car. Hayden followed and climbed into the passenger seat after he unlocked the door. "I'm going where you go tonight, Dad. I wasn't the one who left you, but you left me. How was I supposed to get past that? Tonight, I'm drinking with you. No calls to your mom. If she tries to find us, you tell me right away so we can leave quickly." They ended up at Ty's bar in West Richland, drinking and catching up on the last 3 years. A few men in their 30s came over to say hi to Hayden and bought her drinks. "Damn it, Hayden," Randy said quietly. "Is this what I come back to? I thought you were better than this." "Well, Dad, you left, remember? And it was my fault. If I hadn't gotten drunk and said things that night, you wouldn't have left me here to handle things on my own." His heart sank even more. Maybe coming home wasn't such a good idea after all. "It wasn't about you, honey. None of it was your fault. When you think about it, it was your mom and the choices she made to be with other men. It would have come out sooner or later. You did nothing wrong." Randy spoke with heavy sadness, leaning across the sticky table at Ty's bar. He wanted so much for her to hear the simple truth. He wished it could clear away the harsh pain she had been feeling for 3 long years. He reached his hand out, hoping she might take it. Just a small sign would show he still could reach the young girl he loved, hidden under her tough, bitter shell. But Hayden did not take his hand. She didn't even look at it. Instead, Her eyes slowly moved up from her half-empty glass, her pupils wide and filled with a mix of cheap beer and deep bitterness. Her lips formed a sharp, mocking smile that did not look right on her face. She breathed shallowly, her chest rising and falling under her thin top. The way she dressed was like a quiet, angry challenge to the care Randy was trying to give. "You are so weak, Randy," Hayden said quietly, her voice low but sharp, cutting through the noise of the bar like a knife. "You really still sit there, even after 3 years, telling yourself that simple story, don't you? It was all Sarah's fault. Sarah was the bad one. Sarah was the one everyone blamed. So Randy gets away, plays the victim, and disappears. Do you think that makes you a man? Do you think that makes you a father? You didn't just leave her, Dad. You left me. You left me on that porch, alone with no help, and you didn't even have the courage to look at me when you did it." "I had to leave, Hayden," Randy said back. His voice tight and his jaw clenched so hard, his face looked tense. "I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I couldn't look at her without seeing every lie she told me for years. You don't understand how bad things were in that home. You don't know what she did. You don't know what she let happen right where I could see. I didn't need you to fix her, you fool. I needed you to stay for me." Hayden burst out, hitting the table hard so her glass shook and spilled some beer on the wood. Her voice was raw, filled with pure anger that made some older men turn to look. "You were supposed to be my father. You were the one who was supposed to stop the ceiling from falling. But you ran away. You packed your small bags and drove off because you were hurt, and now you have the nerve to come back here with some fancy new job at the labs. And you think you can just buy me a couple of beers and act like nothing happened in the last 3 years? Forget that." Before Randy could say anything, a deep, steady vibration shook the thin glass windows of the bar. It wasn't the sound of a normal engine. It was a low, heavy hum that seemed to fill the whole street. Hayden changed all of a sudden. The pain in her eyes disappeared fast. Instead, she looked calm and distant, which made Randy's stomach twist. She stood up straight and strong. She reached behind her and grabbed her old leather jacket from the stool. Her movements were quick and sure, like a soldier ready for orders. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice flat and without any feeling. "No, you're not," Randy said, standing up too. He was big, and he tried to block her way to the door. "You're drunk, Hayden. You're coming with me. Get in the truck. We'll find a motel, you'll rest, and then we will talk like normal people." "Move aside, Randy," she said quietly, her voice cold. She didn't look at him. She looked right past him as if he was just air. "You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. You lost that right the moment you left 3 years ago. You're a stranger with the same blood. Now step aside." She slipped past him quickly, small and fast, before he could stop her. Randy turned, cursing softly, and followed her out of Ty's bar into the cool, wet night of West Richland. Waiting on the gravel parking lot was a big, custom motorcycle painted in flat black. It had no shiny parts, no stickers, no license plate. On the seat sat a man wearing dark jeans and a cracked leather jacket. His face was pale in the streetlight, his sharp jaw like it was made of stone. His dark eyes showed no feeling, like he was not really there. He did not look like the usual bikers Randy knew. He looked like a statue made of cold stone. Hayden walked straight to him without any pause. She climbed onto the back of the bike, wrapping her thin arms around his waist and resting her face against his back. Her body fit against his so easily that Randy's chest tightened with a sudden sharp worry. "Who are you?" Randy shouted, stepping off the curb onto the gravel. His boots made a loud crunching sound. "Get off that bike, Hayden! You're not going anywhere with him!" The rider slowly turned his head and looked at Randy. His dark eyes didn't look angry or scared. Instead, he seemed a little bit amused, like someone watching a strange problem he already understood. "Ah," the man said. His voice was calm and smooth, strong without needing to shout. "The ghost has finally taken form. She's told me about you, Randy, the great empty space. The man who taught her that love is just a short deal that can be ended any time. It's very interesting to see the real person behind that story. You look quite normal." "Don't say my name, you freak," Randy growled, stepping closer, his fists tight. His old football player sense told him to stop this man from riding away with Hayden. "I don't know who you are, but if you don't get my daughter off that bike now, I will make you stop." The rider didn't move. He turned back to the handlebars, ignoring the warning. "My name is Vaughn, Randy. I don't take things by force. I only give a place to the things people leave behind. Hayden is part of something bigger now. She belongs to the art. Vaughn, let's go," Hayden said softly from behind him. Her voice was small, without the strong anger she had shown before. "Don't bother with him. He's just giving up. He doesn't understand." "No!" Randy shouted, reaching out to grab Hayden's arm. But Vaughn was already turning the throttle. The back tire kicked up stones and dirt. The bike's engine made a loud screech as it raced out of the parking lot and onto the dark highway. Randy stood there in a cloud of dust and smoke, his hand grabbing empty space. "Damn it!" Randy yelled, turning quickly and running to his truck. He threw himself inside, put the key in, and pressed the gas hard. The tires of his old truck squealed as he sped off, trying to catch up. He kept his headlights off, watching the small red light on the motorcycle ahead, about a quarter-mile away. Vaughn was not going too fast. He rode his motorcycle with a cold, quiet confidence, moving through the empty old parts of Richland where big warehouses and gravel pits filled the land. The streetlights became fewer and farther apart. The dark desert night swallowed the road ahead. Finally, the motorcycle slowed down and turned into a cracked parking lot filled with weeds. It was in front of an old group of shops. Towering over the empty lot was a large, worn-out brick building from the 1940s. It used to be a movie theater. The sign above the door was dark with most of the plastic letters missing, but someone had spray-painted in black, bold letters on the white glass. The illusion of flesh. Randy parked his truck 3 blocks away, under the shadow of an old, rusted water tower. He left the engine running. He stepped out quietly, staying close to the brick walls of nearby buildings, watching the theater entrance. The scene made him uneasy. There was no music inside, no glowing signs, no happy voices. A line of young people, mostly late teens and early 20s, stood quietly beside the building. They were still like statues, dressed in dark, worn-out clothes. Their faces were pale and showed no feeling. By the heavy steel door, a man who looked very strong stood with his arm crossed. He held a big gray plastic bin in front of him. Randy saw each person reach into their pockets, take out their cell phones, and drop them silently into the bin. The man said roughly, "Name and title," as the next young person moved forward. "I am Ruin," said the young man quietly, looking down at the ground. "My purpose is to bleed for the collective." "Go inside," the strong man said, pointing to the door. Randy felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. This was not a party or a concert. It was a place for control and serious change. Then he saw Vaughn bring the motorcycle right up to the entrance. The big man stepped aside quickly, bowing his head in complete respect. Vaughn did not look at him. He got off the bike and Hayden followed him closely, her head down, holding tightly to his jacket as if she was afraid to make a mistake. They disappeared through the heavy door. The door closed behind them with a loud, sharp noise. To Randy, it sounded like a tomb closing. The next morning, the hot desert sun was already warming the streets of Richland by 9 o'clock. Randy drove through the city, his head aching from too much beer and little sleep. His thoughts kept coming back to the name Vaughn. He had spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling in a cheap motel, feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. Hayden was an adult, but he couldn't call the police. He couldn't make her get into his truck without getting in trouble himself. If he wanted to get her out of that theater, he needed to find out what kind of power Vaughn had over her. He drove his truck to a small, plain group of shops near the highway. A faded sign in the window of one corner store said, "Sink and Skin Tattoo." It was the only shop around that seemed to attract the kind of people he had seen at the theater the night before. Randy pushed open the door, and a small bell rang. Inside, the shop was clean, but smelled strongly of rubbing alcohol and soap. The walls were full of framed artwork, mostly dark pictures like thorns, broken dolls, and eyes with tears. Behind the counter stood a young woman. Her left arm was covered with dark, detailed tattoos. One side of her black hair was shaved close to her scalp, and the rest fell sharply over her right eye. She did not look up from the sketchbook she was drawing in, her pen moving steadily. "We don't take walk-ins on Tuesdays," she said flatly. "And if you want to cover an old sports tattoo, this isn't the place." "I'm not here for a tattoo," Randy said, stepping up to the counter and placing his hands on the glass. "I'm looking for a man named Vaughn. I heard people from his group come here." The sound of the pen stopped right away. The woman slowly looked up. Her dark eyes locked onto Randy, studying his face like she was trying to understand something deep. The calm, professional look on her face disappeared, replaced by shock. Her cheeks lost color and looked almost see-through. "You," she whispered, her voice shaking before she tried to stop herself. Her lips curled into an expression full of disgust. "You're Randy Travis, the high school hero who left when things got hard." Randy blinked, surprised. "How do you know me? I've been gone from this town for 3 years." Everyone who made it through with Sarah Travis knows you, coward, she said sharply, stepping out from behind the counter and standing very close to him. She was much shorter than Randy, but held herself with such tension it felt like she could snap. My name is Cleo, and you have some nerve coming back here acting like you care. Listen, Cleo, Randy said, his voice dropping and serious. I don't know you. I don't care what you think about my past. My daughter is stuck in that old theater with a dangerous man named Vaughn, and I'm going to bring her back. If you know anything about him, you need to tell me now. Stuck? Cleo laughed bitterly. Her voice was rough and sharp. She's not stuck, Randy. She's there because she wants to be. Vaughn offered her a way to fix what's broken inside her. You think you just left a cheating wife when you left Richland? You think Sarah's problems were only about private fights? She stepped closer, her dark eyes fixed on him. Your wife was dangerous, Randy. When you left, she had no limits. No one to hide behind, no one to protect her name. She turned your big house into a place of destruction. She brought in young girls from the college, girls like me who just wanted to escape, and she used us. She made rules where she was the leader. Men came to that house to control her, and after that she made the rest of us go through hard times too. It was a group that messed with our minds and bodies, and she was in control of it all. Randy felt sweat running down his face. He looked at her, his stomach turning as the terrible truth became clear to him. I didn't know, he said quietly. Of course you didn't, because you didn't want to see, Cleo shouted, her voice full of pain and anger. You ran away. You left her to her sickness. And do you know who she brought in to take your place? Vaughn. He was just a young man then, smart but empty inside, and he wanted to see how far he could push people. Sarah taught him everything, how to break a person's mind, how to use pain and shame to make someone completely depend on you. She made a monster, Randy, but Vaughn was smarter. He didn't want to stay under her control. He used her own methods, her own people, and tore her down. He tricked her, exposed her secrets, and pushed her out. He took over. She grabbed Randy's shirt tightly. And now he has your daughter. He didn't take Hayden because of anything like you're thinking. Vaughn doesn't care about that. He cares about control. He took Hayden because she is Sarah's child. He's using the same terrible games your wife learned to empty your daughter's spirit. He's going to make her into someone who just obeys without question, just to show Sarah he is the one in charge. He was planning to hurt Hayden to get back at her mother, and all this was happening because you left the door open. Randy stood still in the middle of the clean shop, feeling Cleo's words hit him hard, as if someone had punched him. The room seemed to tilt, and the smell of rubbing alcohol suddenly felt cold and heavy, like a place where people rest quietly after dying. Where is Sarah? Randy asked, his voice soft and low. Go find her at the trailer park near the bypass, Cleo said. She let go of his shirt and turned away, her shoulders shaking. Lot 42, go see the queen you left behind. See what she became? The bypass trailer park was a dry, empty place with hard dirt and rocks baked by the hot eastern Washington sun. No trees, no grass, only rows of old, rusty trailers sitting like forgotten metal boxes in the heat. Randy parked his truck in front of Lot 42. The engine made a rough noise before stopping. He climbed the rusty metal steps of the trailer. They rocked a little under his weight. He didn't knock quietly. Instead, he banged his hand hard against the door. The sound echoed through the silent park. The door opened slowly. Inside smelled of old cigarette smoke and damp cardboard. Randy stopped. His breath caught. The woman in the doorway was not the Sarah he had known for 15 years. The lively, bright elementary school teacher with a warm laugh and strong posture was gone. In her place stood a thin, tired woman who looked much older. Her blonde hair was dirty and hung in uneven clumps around her pale, hollowed face. Her collarbones stuck out under a stained shirt. Her arms had dark marks that showed her hard times. Her eyes were deep and tired, staring at him with a mix of fear and confusion. Randy? She said in a dry, weak voice, like dry leaves brushing the ground. Move, he said sharply. He stepped past her, his shoulder brushing her thin body as he entered the small, dark room. The living room was messy, filled with empty cans, dirty clothes, and plastic bottles. He turned to face her, his chest rising with a mix of anger and a strange sadness that made him feel uneasy. Jesus Christ, Sarah, Randy said, his voice hard and cold. I guess the queen of this place doesn't live in a fancy house anymore. What happened to the big house? What happened to all your friends? Sarah didn't fight. She didn't yell back or try to explain. She sank down onto an old, stained sofa, hiding her face in her thin hands. Her shoulders shook as small, soft sobs came out. Did you come here just to see me like this, Randy? she whispered, her voice shaking. "Did you come all this way just to upset me? There's nothing left now. They took everything. He took everything." "I don't care about your trailer or your money, Sarah," Randy said harshly. He walked over and stood right above her, his shadow covering her up. "I'm here because of Hayden. I met a girl named Cleo today. She told me about your basement parties. She said you turned our home into a bad place after I left, and she told me about Vaughn." When Randy said Vaughn's name, Sarah screamed, scared and shaking. She pulled her knees close to her chest like she wanted to keep herself safe. She rocked back and forth, her eyes showing pure fear. No, she whispered, her teeth shaking. "Don't say his name, please, Randy. Don't let him find out I'm here. He'll come back. He said he would come back to finish it." "Be quiet and look at me," Randy shouted. He grabbed her shoulders and pulled her up. She felt light in his hands, like dry branches in the wind. "You brought that trouble into our lives. You taught him how to hurt people. And now our daughter is stuck in some empty theater treated badly. Why did you bring him here, Sarah? What did you do?" Sarah looked at him, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, her eyes burned with a fierce, scared strength. "You think you're so perfect, Randy," she yelled back, her voice breaking. "You think you didn't make this worse? Yes, I was struggling. I had darkness inside me I couldn't control, a need to feel broken so I didn't have to be perfect anymore. But you were my husband. You were supposed to help me. You were supposed to pull me out of this mess. But when you found out, you called me terrible names, packed your bags, and left. You left me alone with my problems. You left the house to me, and you never called, never checked on our daughter. You just disappeared." She scratched at his hands, trying to break free. "When you left, I had nothing to hold on to. No limits. I fell down deep, and I dragged anyone I could with me. Then I found Vaughn. He was calm, quiet, empty inside, ready to do what I asked. I thought I was the one in control. I thought I was using him. I let him tie me to the bed. I let him cover my eyes. I let him watch while the others treated me badly. I showed him how a person's mind can break down when pain is all they feel." She stopped speaking and took a shaky breath, tears coming quietly. Her head dropped onto Randy's chest. Her body went limp. "But he wasn't playing a game, Randy. He was watching me. He was learning what made me weak. When he got what he wanted, he turned my own friends against me. He came into my home, the one we built, and slowly tore apart my mind. He made me think I was crazy. He made everyone believe I was just a sad old addict. He took my home, he took my girls, he took my strength, and then he threw me away like I was nothing. He made a monster out of me, and that monster hurt me from inside. And now he's taking Hayden, because he knows that's the only way to destroy what's left of me. He is hurting Hayden because of me, Randy, because of what I did to him." Randy gently let go of her shoulders. He stepped back as she fell onto the worn, dirty couch. The air inside the trailer was thick and heavy, full of dust and sadness from a family broken. He looked down at his ex-wife, the woman he once loved, the mother of his child, and he knew there was no revenge here. She was already lost in pain. "He's going to hurt our daughter, Sarah," Randy said quietly. His voice was empty, without anger. "No," Sarah whispered, looking blankly at the stained ceiling. "It's worse. He's going to make her feel trapped and broken." The deep hum from the machines in the marquee theater felt like it was pressing hard against Randy's ears. It was a low, steady sound that shook his teeth inside his mouth. It had no tune, no life, just a strong, heavy beat that made everything feel worse. Randy didn't stop by the side door to hand over his phone. He walked straight to the big man guarding the entrance. His face was hard and serious. The bouncer saw him coming and smiled coldly as he raised a huge hand to stop Randy. "Phones go in the bin," the bouncer said, stepping in front of him. "And you need to say—" Randy didn't wait for the rest. He moved quickly and hit the man hard and fast. The bouncer gasped and his knees gave out. He slid down the wall and landed on the ground, quietly. Randy didn't look back. He grabbed the heavy door handle, pushed with his shoulder, and forced his way inside. The inside of the theater was large, dark, and very crowded. There were no seats. All the chairs had been taken away, leaving a big, empty floor made of concrete filled with hundreds of young people standing close together. They weren't dancing or talking. Instead, they slowly moved back and forth together as if in a trance, to the loud, constant noise coming from the stage. Their faces looked pale in the dim blue light, and their eyes stared ahead, as if they were focused on something very serious. Randy pushed his way through the crowd, using his strong shoulders to make space between the packed bodies. "Move out of the way," he said quietly but with force. He bumped into several young men who fell but didn't fight back. They just looked at him with blank eyes and slowly stood up to keep moving with the rhythm. Randy finally reached the front, the edge of the raised stage. His heart stopped. There, kneeling on the worn wooden floor, was Hayden. She wore old, torn pieces of gray cloth, and her skin was dirty with smudges of dark paint. Her eyes were wide open and completely blank, staring out past the crowd with a distant look. She seemed empty inside, breathing slowly and trembling a little, clearly affected by some kind of strange plants Cleo had warned him about. Behind her stood Vaughn. He wore a clean white shirt that looked very out of place on the dirty stage. In one hand, he held a microphone. In the other, a thin, silver chain was attached to a leather collar fastened tightly around Hayden's neck. Vaughn's voice echoed through the big theater speakers. It was smooth but cold, without any feeling. "Here we see the true form of a person," he said. "Take away names. Take away family. Take away the things that hold us back. What is left? The simple, honest truth of the body. Sing for them, little bird. Show what real freedom is." He pulled lightly on the chain. Hayden's head lifted. She leaned toward the microphone and started to make a low, strange sound. It was weak and uneven, very different from her strong singing before. The crowd answered with a soft, low noise, raising their arms together. "Hayden!" Randy shouted, his voice loud and full of urgency. "Hayden, get down from there!" Suddenly, the music stopped. The sudden quiet in the huge theater was overwhelming, broken only by the sound of hundreds of people holding their breath. Vaughn slowly looked down from the stage, his pale face showing a cold, mocking smile. He didn't seem surprised. He looked like he had been waiting for this moment. "Ah," Vaughn said into the microphone, his voice clear and loud in the big space. "The ghost has come back to take what was his. Look at him, little bird. The man who left you all alone in the wild has come to play the hero." "I'm going to stop you, you sick man," Randy shouted. He grabbed the edge of the stage and pulled himself up onto the wooden platform. But before his boots could fully land, 3 big security men appeared from the shadows at the side of the stage. They stopped him like a strong wall. They quickly hit Randy, and he felt sharp pain in his face and chest. He fought hard, using his old football strength. He shoved one man with his shoulder, making the man fall down with a loud thud. But the other 2 jumped in fast, holding Randy's arms behind his back and pushing him to his knees, his face pressed into the dirty, splintered wood of the stage. Randy spat some blood onto the floor, his eyes filling with tears as he looked up at his daughter. "Hayden, please," he said, his voice broken and rough. "Look at me. It's Dad. He's hurting you. He's using you to get to your mother. You have to come home with me. Let's go home." Hayden slowly stood up from her knees. The silver chain around her neck softly rattled as she walked toward him. Her movements were calm and sure, without the nervous energy she had shown before. She stood right in front of him, looking down with eyes that were empty and cold, showing no sign she recognized him. She raised her right hand and struck Randy across the face. The loud slap echoed through the silent theater. "You don't get to call me that," Hayden said. Her voice was steady with the same slow, almost hypnotic tone as Vaughn's. "You are not my father, Randy. You're just a man who packed a bag and left while his daughter cried on the porch. You left me in a house full of hurt, and you never looked back. You left me to face everything alone." She stepped back and stood perfectly beside Vaughn. Vaughn reached out and gently touched her hair, pulling her head closer to his side. Hayden leaned into his touch, her eyes closing in a look of complete, deep trust. "But I found a home," Hayden said, her voice loud through the speakers above. "I found a man who stays even when things get tough. I found a family that knows pain is all we really have left. You are just someone who gives up, Randy, and you have no power here." She looked down at the guards holding him. "Take this trash out to the street." The guards grabbed Randy by his arms and pulled him backward off the stage. Randy kicked and fought, yelling her name until his voice broke. But the loud music suddenly came back on, covering his shouts in a wall of heavy noise. They dragged him through the quiet crowd, pushed him out the side doors, and dropped him down the concrete steps. Randy hit the ground hard, scraping his arms on the rough pavement, struggling to catch his breath as a heavy foot pressed him once more. The steel doors of the marquee slammed shut behind him, locking with a final click. Randy lay on the dirty ground, coughing hard, staring up at the scratched letters on the glass of the building. He was hurt, broken, and completely defeated. The strength he had always trusted was useless now. The law could not reach them. Vaughn had built a strong wall inside his daughter's mind, and Randy was left outside. The sharp sting of rubbing alcohol brought Randy back to full awareness. He turned his head slowly. His right eye was swollen and painful. His ribs felt like they were cracked. He was lying flat on his back on a black vinyl chair in a clean, bright room that felt cold and empty. He forced his good eye open. Sarah stood over him. Her hands shook badly as she pressed a bloodied cloth to his split eyebrow. Her face looked thin and tired, her cheekbones showing under pale, bruised skin. But she did not look away when he glared at her. "Get your hands off me!" Randy growled. His voice was rough and weak. He pushed her hands away, and the sudden move sent a sharp pain through his chest. "I told you I never wanted to see you again. Where am I?" Cleo stepped into sight from the corner of the room. She stood with her heavily tattooed arms crossed, her body stiff and without any kindness. "You're in the back room of my shop, Travis," she said. "Some kids found you lying bloody on the steps of the marquee after Vaughn's people tossed you out like trash. I drove over, pulled your heavy body into my truck's bed, and brought you here. I called Sarah because I am a tattoo artist, not a nurse, and I wasn't going to let you lose too much blood on my clean floor." "I don't need a nurse, and I don't need her," Randy said roughly, trying to sit up in the vinyl chair. His chest rose and fell quickly as he glared at Sarah. "You think putting a bandage on my head fixes this? You think acting like the caring wife makes what your crazy little pet did disappear? He had his people rough me up badly. He even had our daughter on a leash, a dog collar around her neck, in front of lots of people. She was out of her mind on drugs. She looked at me and called me a coward. This is all your fault. You brought this trouble into my family." Sarah didn't move back. The sad, crying woman from the trailer park was gone. She stepped close to the chair, putting her hands on the armrests, keeping him there. Her eyes met his, full of a fierce, desperate anger. "Listen to me, Randy," Sarah said, her rough voice strong and sure. "You can hate me for the rest of your life. You can spit in my face, curse me, blame me for everything bad that happened in this awful world. I don't care. I know who I am. I know what I started in that basement 3 years ago. And I know the kind of trouble I let loose when I brought Vaughn into my life. You don't have to remind me of my mistakes. I live with them every single second. I'm a monster. But you are a fool." She leaned in closer. He could smell the smoke on her breath and the tiredness in her skin. "If you think you can just walk into that place, throw a few punches like some old football player, and rescue Hayden, you're totally wrong. You saw what happened tonight. You saw her eyes. She didn't want you to save her. She hit you and told them to get rid of you. Fighting won't work, Randy. You can't stop Vaughn with force. The police won't help us because she's 21, and they'll believe she's there by choice. We can't just drag her out. So you need to lower your big, fragile pride, stay quiet, and work with me. Because right now, I'm the only person who truly understands the mind games that man is playing to break her down." Randy looked at her. Her harsh truth hit him harder than the boots outside the theater. He had failed completely. His strength did not help at all. He sank back into the chair, breathing hard. "She is right, Travis," Cleo said as she stepped forward. "Vaughn does not use force. He does not lock doors. He locks minds. He has made Hayden believe the hurt she feels is some kind of art. He has made her think he is the only one who truly understands the big empty space you left when you left her. You can't just stop him. If you stop Vaughn now, he becomes a hero in her eyes. Hayden will admire him forever, and you will lose her forever. We have to break the illusion. We have to completely tear down the false image he built in her mind." "How?" Randy asked, his voice weak and tired. "How can we break something we can't even touch?" "We cut off his support," Sarah said right away, her voice low and calm. "Vaughn keeps his victims alone. He stops them from sleeping. He withholds real care. He controls everything they hear. He has made her think the outside world is bad and that you hate her. We have to find a small opening in that belief. We must send her a message, something very private, something from before all the pain, before the divorce, something that shows Vaughn is lying about you and how much you care." "Cassidy," Randy said, his good eye opening wide. "Hayden's bass player. They've been best friends since middle school. I saw her face on a flyer on the wall outside the theater. If Cassidy is in that group, she can reach Hayden directly." "Then we find Cassidy," Cleo said firmly, grabbing her truck keys from the counter. "And we make her a messenger." The alley behind the local coffee shop was a narrow space of dirty bricks and cracked ground. Randy stood leaning heavily on the wall, his arms crossed tightly to guard his hurting ribs. Cleo was a few feet away, watching the street carefully, to make sure no one was watching them. Before them stood Cassidy, trembling so hard her teeth clicked together. She was 21, but looked like a scared child. Her dark hair was greasy and messy, and her pale eyes kept looking toward the end of the alley. She bit her thumbnail until her skin was red and sore. "I can't be out here talking to you," Cassidy whispered quickly, holding her stomach as if to protect herself. "If Vaughn finds out I left the place to meet you, he will send me away, or do worse. You don't understand how things work inside that theater, Mr. Travis. Vaughn sees everything. He knows everything. I'm going to get in trouble just for standing here." "Vaughn is a problem, Cassidy," Randy said. His voice was cold, almost demanding. He had no time for pity. "He's tricking everyone with his mind games, and my daughter is caught in the middle. You're supposed to be her best friend. You grew up in my house. You ate dinner at my table for 6 years. Look at me and tell me exactly what that man is doing to her in that theater." Cassidy let out a soft, quiet sob. She looked at Randy, her face full of pain. "He's breaking her down," Cassidy said, words rushing out in fear. "He keeps her awake for days. He says only people who are tired can make real art. He barely lets her eat. He gives her strange teas that make her feel strange and confused, so she loses track of time. He makes her stay in a dark room, singing the same lines over and over until she hurts her voice. When she finally cries, he says that means she's pure. He tells her he's the only one who didn't leave her. He uses you, Mr. Travis. He reads her private diaries for everyone to hear and says you left because there was something wrong with her. He tears her mind apart so he can put it back the way he wants." Randy felt anger rising inside him. He stepped closer, standing over the scared girl. "And you just watch him do this? You see him hurting your best friend, and you do nothing?" "I'm scared," Cassidy shouted, tears falling on her pale face. "You don't know what happens to people who question him. He shows all their secrets to everyone. He makes them so ashamed they beg for his forgiveness. I have nowhere else to go. I'm stuck in there just like she is." "You're only stuck because you believe his lies," Cleo said sharply from the far end of the alley. "Stop crying and listen." Randy pulled a small, folded piece of paper from his jacket and held it out to Cassidy. "I'm not asking you to fight him," Randy said softer now, trying to calm her panic so she would do what he wanted. "I just want you to slip this into Hayden's pocket. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to tell her it's from me. Just put it somewhere Vaughn won't see it, where she can find it when she's alone in her room," Randy said quietly. Cassidy looked at the paper like it was something bad. "What does it say?" she asked. "It's a secret code," Randy said firmly, making her look at him. "When she was 7, we built a treehouse in the backyard. We had a secret knock and a silly little password that only we knew. Sarah didn't know it. No one else did. If Hayden sees that password, she'll know it came from me. She'll see that I haven't left her. It will make her wonder if Vaughn really knows everything. It will remind her that the world outside still cares. Just take the paper, Cassidy." Cassidy's hand shook as she took the folded note. She held it close to her chest. "If he finds this on me—" "He won't," Randy said, stepping back into the dark shadows by the wall. "Do this one thing, Cassidy. Do it for the girl who used to share her lunch with you." Cassidy quickly nodded, then turned and ran out of the alley. Her steps echoed loudly until she disappeared. 2 hours later, inside the big empty main hall of the Marquee Theater, Cassidy stood before the raised wooden stage. Her whole body shook with cold fear. On the stage sat Vaughn in a large, fancy wooden chair. He was calmly reading a book, his legs crossed, looking calm and untouched by the dirt and darkness of the theater. Cassidy didn't go to Hayden's room. She didn't look for her best friend. Filled with fear and wanting to protect herself, she walked straight up the steps to the stage. "Master," she whispered, her voice breaking. Vaughn slowly closed his book and looked down at her. His dark eyes studied the sweat on her forehead like he was examining a problem, calm and sharp. "Speak, Ruin," he said. Cassidy pulled the folded white paper from her pocket and held it out with a shaky hand. "Her father caught me in the alley behind the coffee shop," Cassidy cried, breaking the promise she had made before. "He told me to hide this in Hayden's clothes. He said it was a childhood code to show you weren't honest with her. I didn't want to take it, but he made me. I brought it to you right away. I'm loyal to the group. Please, don't punish me." Vaughn took the paper from her trembling fingers. He slowly unfolded it and read the short handwritten note. A slow, chilling smile spread across his pale face. It wasn't a smile of anger. It was a smile of quiet, dark pleasure. Punish you? Vaughn said softly. His voice was smooth and calm. Why would I punish you, my dear? You have just made things much worse for him. Randy sat in his truck outside the cheap motel, staring at the glowing screen of his old phone. The text had come from an unknown number 10 minutes ago. It said only two things. The ghost is invited to dine with the living. The marquee, midnight. Come alone, or the bird never sings again. Randy locked the phone and put it in his pocket. He reached down to the floor and grabbed a heavy steel tire iron. He tucked it into the back of his pants, pulling his jacket down to hide it. He did not care about rules anymore. He did not care about all the mind games Sarah had warned about. If Vaughn was inviting him, he was going in, and he would make sure Vaughn would not get up again. When Randy got to the marquee, the street outside was empty. There was no crowd of quiet, sad kids waiting. The large bouncer was also gone. The heavy steel door on the side was pushed open just a little, letting a thin line of soft yellow light fall on the broken concrete outside. Randy pushed the door and stepped inside. The main room was completely silent. The loud, low sound that had made the walls hum the night before was gone. In the middle of the big, empty concrete floor was a small wooden table. Two chairs were set opposite each other. A bright white light shone down from above, lighting up just the table. The rest of the room was lost in dark shadows. Sitting in one chair was Vaughn. He wore a neat black suit, the kind without a tie. "Sit down, Randy," Vaughn said, his voice smooth and clear in the large, empty space. He pointed to the empty chair across the table. "I made sure no one else would disturb us. This is a private meeting." Randy walked slowly into the circle of light. He did not sit. He stood tall over the table, one hand near his back where the cold tire iron hid. "Where is she?" Randy asked, his voice echoing in the dark room. "She is upstairs, writing a song made from her pain," Vaughn answered calmly. He leaned back and touched his long fingers together. "But we are not here to talk about her now. We are here to talk about your past. Please sit down. I promise. I am not here to fight." "I don't care what you want," Randy said, stepping closer to the table. "You have 5 seconds to bring her here, or I'll come get her myself," Vaughn said, his voice cold. He sighed, acting like he was very disappointed. Then he reached inside his jacket and pulled out an old, worn leather book. He set it carefully in the middle of the wooden table. Randy knew what it was right away. It was Hayden's diary, the one she had kept since she was in 10th grade. "You sent a scared, fragile girl to deliver a secret message today," Vaughn said quietly. He tapped the diary cover with his finger. "The treehouse code. A weak, desperate try to rebuild a family connection that you broke yourself. Did you really think Cassidy was strong enough to lie to me? My followers have no secrets, Randy. They leave all lies outside. I control everything they see, hear, and believe." Randy felt a chill run through his body. Cassidy had betrayed him. The small hope he'd thrown into the dark had been given straight to the enemy. "Let me explain why you failed, Randy," Vaughn said, his voice rising with the smooth, powerful tone of someone used to speaking to a crowd. He opened the diary to a page marked with a ribbon. "You think you can save her because you share her blood?" Vaughn said. "You think being a father is something you're born with, something stronger than pain. But you're wrong. Being a father is a promise you make, a promise you gave up on. Let me read from your own daughter's words." Vaughn cleared his throat clearly. "May 14th, he read loud and clear into the silence. "Dad packed his bags today. I was lying on the couch. My head hurt so much from the drinking. I heard the zipper on his bag down the hall. I heard his heavy boots on the floor. I waited for him to come in, to touch my shoulder and say it would be okay, but he didn't. He walked right past me out the front door, got into his truck and left. He didn't even look at me. I must be poison. Mom is sick and I am the reason Dad left. If he can't stand to look at me, I deserve to be forgotten." Vaughn shut the book hard, the sound ringing in the quiet room. He looked at Randy, his dark eyes shining with satisfaction. "Do you hear that, you foolish man?" Vaughn said, leaning forward. His calm face showed a glimpse of the cruel person underneath. "She doesn't hate Sarah for what she did. She hates herself. And she hates herself because you made her feel like she wasn't good enough. You taught her that when things get hard, when the idea of a perfect family falls apart, you will throw her away like something broken. You made the empty space inside her. I didn't break your daughter's mind, Randy. You did. I just came into the ruins you left and built something strong from it." "Shut up!" Randy yelled. He grabbed a heavy metal bar from his belt and swung it toward Vaughn's face. He missed. From the dark shadows around the small circle of light, 4 big men appeared very quickly. They had been standing still and quiet the whole time. They grabbed Randy's wrists tightly. The metal bar was pulled from his hand and hit the floor with a loud sound. Someone hit Randy hard in the side, making him fall to his knees. 2 men grabbed his shoulders and held him down. Vaughn did not show any fear or move much. He sat calmly and smoothed a tiny crease on his black jacket. "You see? You always use force," Vaughn said softly, looking down at Randy. "You try to fight with your body because your mind is weak. But force means nothing here. Only the mind matters." Vaughn snapped his fingers. The guards pulled Randy back roughly across the floor and down a small, dark stairway under the theater. They threw him into a small, windowless, concrete room that smelled damp and rusty. The heavy metal door closed with a loud, final sound. Randy stood up and hit the door with his shoulder, shouting useless words into the dark room. He was locked in. Suddenly, a rough sound came from an old air vent near the ceiling. It was a loudspeaker. "Listen carefully, Randy," Vaughn's voice came through the speaker, strange but clear. "I want you to hear what true, complete loyalty sounds like." There was a click, and the sound changed. Through the vent, Randy heard slow, steady chanting. Vaughn's voice repeated a dark, quiet phrase about losing pride, accepting pain, and the need to suffer. Then a second voice started to repeat the words, too. It was soft, weak, and without feeling. It went over the words mindlessly. It was Hayden. Randy fell to the cold floor, covered his ears with his hands, and pressed his forehead against the stone. He closed his eyes tightly, tears of deep pain running down his bruised face. Vaughn hadn't hurt him with his hands. He had done something much worse. He had trapped Randy in darkness, making him listen as his daughter slowly lost herself, showing Randy he had no power to stop it. Sarah stood in the middle of the small, hot trailer. It had been 4 hours since Randy had left in anger to face Cassidy in the alley. He had not come back. He wasn't answering his secret phone. Sarah knew what had happened. Randy, with his rough, confident belief in his own strength, had walked right into a mental trap. He was caught. He was stuck inside the marquee, leaving Hayden completely alone and totally at Vaughn's mercy. Sarah looked at the dirty wall of the trailer, her chest moving fast and shallow with each short breath. She felt weak. She was tired. She was hated by the town, rejected by her ex-husband, and abandoned by the very monster she had helped shape. But beneath the pain, shame, and numbness from drugs, a small spark of pure mother's love suddenly grew into a fierce fire. She walked to the tiny bedroom at the back of the trailer. She got on her hands and knees and pulled out a heavy, dusty plastic box from under the bed. She opened the latches and took off the lid. Inside were the pieces of her past life, the signs of her suffering. Sarah reached in and took out a heavy black leather corset, carefully made. Under it were thick leather boots that went up to the thigh, studded wrist cuffs, and a heavy collar with a silver buckle. This was the outfit of the Queen, the armor she wore when she ruled the dark basement of the F House, back when she led the very men who now watched outside Vaughn's theater. She took off her dirty tank top and sweatpants. Her body was thin and weak, her ribs showing, skin marked by old injuries. Her hands shook as she wrapped the corset tightly around herself until it felt like part of her skin. She buckled the collar around her neck and pulled the boots up over her thin legs. Sarah looked in the cracked mirror on the back of the door. She looked like a sad shadow of herself, like a hungry old ghost putting on the dress of a lost queen. But it didn't matter. She knew exactly how Vaughn's group worked. She knew who was in charge. She knew the big guard at the side door of the marquee was a man called Ruin. 3 years ago, before Vaughn took her place and made her question everything, Ruin was her most loyal follower. He had respected her deeply. He had begged her to break him down. Vaughn had changed Ruin's mind. He had taught Ruin to hate Sarah, to see her as weak and powerless. Sarah knew that if she came near that door, Ruin would not just reject her. He would want to get back at her for all the years he had suffered under her control. Sarah grabbed a black coat, put it over her leather clothes, and stepped out into the cold night. When she reached the alley behind the Marquee Theater, light rain had started falling. The wet ground shone slick and cold under the streetlight. Ruin stood there, his big arms crossed on his chest under the dim yellow light by the side door. Sarah stepped out of the shadows and dropped the coat onto the wet ground. She stood facing him in her heavy black leather, her tired and beaten body feeling the cold wind. Ruin's eyes grew wide in real surprise. Then his face turned hard and full of hate. He uncrossed his arms and stepped down from the concrete step. "Look at this!" Ruin said with a harsh voice full of anger. The fallen queen comes back crawling from the gutter. You look like a hungry dog, Sarah. You have no power here. The master took your crown, and he gave us true purpose. I do not want the crown, Ruin, Sarah said with a steady voice. It was not the soft, broken tone she had used before. She made it cold and calm, showing a complete submission that she knew would spark the cruel feelings Vaughn had put in him. I want the iron keys on your belt. The keys to the basement. You have my ex-husband locked there, and I am taking him out. Ruin threw back his head and laughed, a rough sound that echoed in the quiet alley. You think you can just ask for the keys? You think you can put on that old leather, come to my door, and order me around? I used to give everything for you. I used to bow before you while you hurt me, and then you just threw me away when you got bored. Now I serve the collective. You mean nothing to me? I know, Sarah said softly. She dropped to her knees on the cold, rough ground. She looked up at the large man standing over her. I know exactly how much you hate me. I know how badly you want to make me feel the shame I caused you. So do it. Ruin stopped laughing. He stared down at her, his hands tightening, his breath getting heavier as the power between them shifted. You want the keys? Ruin said quietly, stepping closer until his boots were just inches from her face. You want to suffer for this? Do what you want, Ruin, Sarah whispered. She opened her arms wide, giving up her pride, her safety, and all her strength for the man trapped below and the daughter trapped above. Take your revenge. Bring me down until you are done. And when you are done, give me the keys. Ruin did not hesitate. He raised his large fist and hit Sarah's face. The sound was harsh and heavy. Sarah fell backward onto the wet pavement, her vision flashing with white spots. Blood came from her nose and ran down her chin, soaking her collar. She did not cry out. She rolled onto her hands and knees, spat a little, and pushed herself back up, looking at him with strong, tired eyes. Is that all you have? She said quietly. Ruin growled in anger and kicked her hard on the side. The force lifted her off the ground and pushed her into the brick wall of the alley. She collapsed, gasping for air. The pain was sharp and all around her. Ruin stood over her, chest rising and falling, his fists wet with rain and her blood. He looked down at the broken woman lying there, the woman he had once admired like a goddess. But seeing her like this did not make him feel strong or happy. Instead, he felt sick inside. The idea that she was still in control was gone. With that, his will to hurt her disappeared too. Slowly and carefully, Sarah raised her hand toward him, trembling and covered in blood. Ruin looked at her silently for a long moment. Then with a sneer, he took off the heavy keyring from his belt. Instead of giving it to her, he tossed it onto the wet ground. The keys clattered loudly near her head. Take your things and leave, Ruin said harshly. You are no longer part of this. He turned and walked away down the dark alley, leaving his duty behind. Sarah lay on the cold, wet ground, her breath shallow, every part of her hurting. She dragged her fingers over the pavement and closed her hand around the cold metal keys. She had done it. She had lost the last bit of pride she had left, trading everything for her family. Using the brick wall to help her, she stood up, opened the heavy steel door, and stepped inside. Randy sat alone in the pitch-black basement, his mind blank. The soft, endless chanting of Vaughn and Hayden echoed faintly through the air vent. Time felt lost. The walls of the concrete room felt like a coffin closing in on him. Suddenly, the loud sound of a key turning in the lock broke the silence. The heavy steel door slowly opened. The dim light from the hallway spilled into the room, showing a thin, shaking figure leaning against the doorframe. Randy quickly stood up, eyes blinking against the light. "Sarah?" he said softly, shocked. She stepped fully into the light, and Randy felt his breath catch. She wore a heavy black corset, wet from rain and dirt. Her face showed clear signs of a hard time. Her nose looked hurt and out of place, one eye swollen almost closed, dark and purple. Blood had stained her teeth, chin, and the front of her collar. Don't look at me, Sarah said quietly, her voice rough and filled with pain. She didn't meet his eyes but stared at the floor, feeling deep shame that he was seeing her like this. Don't say a word, just move. We don't have time. My God, Sarah, what happened to you? Randy asked, stepping forward and reaching to help her. Sarah pulled away quickly from his touch. Vaughn didn't do this. I did. I got the keys from the guard. Now get moving before they know Ruin left the door. She turned and limped slowly down the narrow, dark basement hallway. Randy followed, his mind spinning. The woman he had spent years hating as selfish and careless had just hurt herself to help him get free. "We can't use the stairs," Sarah whispered, leaning hard on the cold wall as she moved through the theater's basement tunnels. "There are guards everywhere. But I remember the plan to this place. There's an old storm drain hatch behind the boiler room. It leads out near the river." They found the heavy iron grate nailed to the floor. Randy put all his strength into pulling the rusted bolts free and moved the heavy cover aside. The smell of still water and rotting leaves came up from the dark hole. "Go," Sarah said, pointing to the concrete pipe below. They crawled through the tight, wet tunnel that smelled musty. The cold, dirty water soaked their clothes. Randy led the way, pushing his hurt body forward, his mind focused on Sarah just behind him, hurt but not giving up. At last, they saw the moon shining on the river's surface. They crawled out of the pipe, falling onto the muddy, reed-filled banks. Randy lay back, staring up at the night sky, breathing in the fresh air deeply. He turned his head to the side. Sarah was curled up in the mud, shaking hard and holding her hurt ribs. Before Randy could say anything, the sound of boots on the gravel broke the quiet. Cleo came out of the dark, holding a bright flashlight. She hurried over and shone the light on them. When the beam fell on Sarah's injured face, Cleo swore softly. She dropped to her knees next to Sarah in the mud. "Oh my God, Sarah," Cleo said quietly. She took off her heavy jacket and wrapped it around the cold, injured woman, covering her torn leather. This small act showed forgiveness. A quiet way to say the past was finally over. "I got him out," Sarah said weakly, her eyes fluttering a little. "I couldn't get Hayden. I'm sorry." "You did what you had to do," Cleo said strongly, holding Sarah up. She looked at Randy, her eyes shining with a fierce, strange energy. "Listen to me, Randy. Both of you listen. I spent the last 6 hours working. I didn't just wait while you acted out. I went online, I tracked IP addresses linked to the Marquise pages, and I followed the money. I found out how Vaughn got the theater. I found out where he came from." Randy sat up, wiping mud from his face. "What did you find?" Cleo let out a sharp, excited laugh. "His real name isn't Vaughn. He's not some street artist who grew up tough and learned dark truths about people. His real name is Percy Worthington. He's the son of a rich hedge fund boss from Connecticut. He went to fancy schools. He had money handed to him. He's a fake, Randy. Just a rich kid playing a part." Sarah gasped quietly, confused. "But his ideas, the things he said about how people break down, the psychology, he copied everything," Cleo shouted, smiling like she couldn't believe it. "He stole all of it. I found an old essay written by a troubled poet in Seattle who passed away years ago. Percy copied the whole thing, moved to a small town in Washington, bought a leather jacket, and pretended to be some dark, wise leader. He's nothing but a rich kid acting out." Randy stared at Cleo, the weight of the news sinking in like cold water. Vaughn's whole plan, his control over Hayden, his scary reputation, it was all a big lie. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't a hero. He was a rich kid playing a dangerous game with real people. Randy slowly stood up, mud dripping from his clothes. The ache in his ribs faded, replaced by a cold, clear focus that was serious and sharp. "He's holding a festival," Randy said quietly, his voice calm but full of a strong warning. "I saw the flyers in the alley, the bird sacrifice, in the woods this weekend. He plans to put his symbol on Hayden's back in front of everyone," Cleo said, nodding quickly. "He wants to mark her forever to make sure people remember him." "He doesn't have anything to be remembered for," Randy said, looking down at his ex-wife, wrapped in Cleo's jacket, hurt because of their daughter. Then he looked back at Cleo. "We are going to that festival, but we won't fight with fists. We will take away Percy's power in front of his whole group and show everyone he's just fooling himself." The back room of Sink and Skin Tattoo smelled strongly of hot printer ink, cheap coffee, and dust. Randy stood by the small glass desk, his big hands resting on it. He watched the laser printer spit out one sheet after another filled with dense black words. Next to it were 3 huge and messy stacks of paper. Cleo typed fast and hard on her laptop keyboard. Her tattooed fingers moved quickly but with purpose. She didn't look like a tattoo artist now, more like someone working hard to find a secret code. "I'm printing the bank records from the Connecticut Trust Fund now," Cleo said, her voice sharp and steady, even though she hadn't slept in 2 days. I have 50 copies of the original manifesto written by David Corliss, the man who died alone in a motel 10 years ago. It matches everything Vaughn has said exactly. The cult guidebook, his talks about shame, the ideas about the body being an illusion, it's all copied. Percy Worthington didn't create one original idea in his sad life. Randy picked up one of the pages from the printer. He looked at the name Percy Worthington at the top of a school record. "We don't need to fight him," Randy said, his voice low and serious. "We just needed printed proof. You can't fight a ghost, but you can turn on the lights and show everyone it's just someone pretending. When is this festival?" "Tonight," Sarah said softly from a dark corner. She sat in a black chair used for tattoos. Cleo had given her a big, clean black hoodie to wear instead of the wet, stained clothes she had before. Her face was badly bruised, with a swollen nose taped up and one eye closed shut. She breathed carefully so she wouldn't hurt her ribs. "He sent the group message about an hour ago," Sarah said, holding up Cleo's extra burner phone. "He calls it the bird sacrifice. He's moving everyone out to the old logging area in the woods north of the bypass. It's far away from everything. No police, no rules about noise. He plans to put Hayden on a raised platform in front of hundreds of people. Then, he wants to mark her back with his symbol. It's like branding cattle, Randy. This is the last step to control her. Once she agrees to get the mark, she won't be able to leave him." Randy squeezed the paper tightly in his big hand. "Then we stop him from doing that." "You need to understand what you're walking into," Sarah said, pushing herself up from the chair. She ignored the sharp pain in her side. Her voice was calm and sharp, like a soldier planning an operation. "Vaughn's power depends on cutting these kids off from the outside world. They think he's a wise leader who gave up the normal life. They believe he knows their pain because he went through the same thing. They are weak, hungry, and they trust him completely. If you go into that clearing and try to take her away, they'll fight you with everything they have." "I'm not going to hurt him," Randy said. He looked at Sarah, ignoring the injuries on her face and focusing on the fierce strength in her good eye. "We're going to walk straight into his little meeting. We'll hold these papers in our hands. We'll stand in front of everyone and show them who he really is. We're going to reveal the truth." Cleo slammed her laptop closed. She grabbed a big canvas bag from the floor and started stuffing it full of printed papers. "We need to look like them," Cleo said, zipping the bag. "If you show up in your Carhartt jacket and boots, the guards will spot you right away. You need to blend in with the rest of the people he keeps." Randy nodded and looked at Sarah. "You're staying here. You can barely stand. You helped me get out of the basement. I'm not letting you go into those woods with broken ribs." "Go to hell, Randy," Sarah said right away. She didn't yell. She just said it like it was a fact no one could argue with. "I made the monster. I gave him the exact plan for the way he's hurting our daughter's mind right now. I bought your freedom with my own blood in that alley, and I am not sitting in a tattoo shop while you finish the job. I am walking into those woods, and I am going to watch Percy Worthington lose his crown. Do not try to stop me." Randy looked at her for a long moment. He did not argue. He just nodded once. The woods north of the Richland bypass were very dark. Tall pine trees covered the land, their thick branches and underbrush making it hard to see. Randy parked his truck on the side of a dirt road used for logging. He turned off the headlights about a mile before they reached the place Sarah had told him about. They stepped out into the cold night air. Randy wore a torn, too-big black sweater and dirty, ripped jeans Cleo had found in the back dumpster of the shop. He had rubbed dark dirt and ash on his face and hair to hide his neat features. He looked tired and worn out, like one of Vaughn's broken followers. Sarah moved slowly around the back of the truck. She leaned hard against the cold metal for support. She wore a dark, loose hoodie with her hood pulled tight over her head to hide the swelling and bandages on her face. Cleo walked beside her, carrying a heavy bag over her shoulder. "Keep your heads down," Randy whispered, his voice soft over the sound of wind moving through the pine needles. "Don't talk to anyone. Don't make eye contact. We're just three shadows walking toward trouble. Keep moving until we reach the front of the stage." They walked quietly along the muddy road. When they reached the top of a small, rocky hill, the trees suddenly opened. Below them was a large, empty patch of earth where the trees had been cut down. The sight made their hearts sink. Dozens of big campfires burned across the blackened ground, throwing orange light and long shadows onto the nearby trees. The air was thick with the smell of wood smoke mixed with burning herbs. A loud, steady industrial noise throbbed from heavy speakers placed around the clearing. It was the same harsh beat Randy had heard inside the theater, only here, in the open air, the deep sound rattled his teeth. Crowds of people stood closely packed in the dirt. They wore dark, ragged clothes, moving together with the heavy sounds, their faces lit by firelight. They looked like lost souls. At the far side of the clearing stood a huge, rough wooden platform made from raw logs. "There he is," Cleo said quietly, pointing to the stage. Randy fixed his eyes on the platform. Vaughn stood in the middle. He was bare-chested, his pale skin and many tattoos shining in the firelight. He held a microphone in one hand and a tattoo machine in the other. He looked like a dark figure speaking to his followers. Kneeling on the rough wooden floor in front of him was Hayden. Her back was bare. Her hands were loosely tied with a dark rope. She swayed slightly, clearly under the effect of strong drugs, her head hanging low in total submission. Randy felt a sudden burst of anger rush through him. He wanted to rush the stage and stop the man. But he remembered Sarah's warning and the empty look in his daughter's eyes when she pushed him away. He forced himself to stay calm. "We hold the line," Randy said quietly. "We do not touch him. We break the illusion." He moved forward into the crowd. Sarah and Cleo came after him. Randy used his large body to make a path through the busy crowd. The heat near the campfires was heavy. The noise was loud. The cult members didn't even notice them. They only moved aside, their eyes fixed on Vaughn. Randy pushed to the very front, stopping about 10 feet from the wooden stage. He planted his boots in the dirt. Cleo stepped next to him and opened a heavy bag. On the stage, Vaughn raised the buzzing tattoo machine. The crowd let out a low sound of eager waiting. "Tonight, we end the last link to the corrupt material world," Vaughn's voice rang out clearly, echoing in the trees. "Tonight, the little bird breaks free from the false name given by her weak father and troubled mother. Tonight, she takes the mark of the group and becomes pure." Vaughn moved closer to Hayden, lowering the needle to her bare, shaking back. "Hey, Percy!" Randy shouted suddenly. His voice cut through the noise like a sharp crack. Vaughn froze. The tattoo machine paused an inch above Hayden's skin. Slowly, Vaughn turned his head, eyes locking on Randy at the front of the crowd. Randy stepped fully out of the crowd, standing tall with his chest out, his face showing strict, powerful control. "Who is Percy?" a man near Randy whispered, confused. Vaughn's perfect calm face wavered for a moment. A quick flash of real fear crossed his pale face, but he quickly covered it with a proud, mocking smile. "The ghost returns to the fire," Vaughn said into the microphone, his voice smooth but full of fake sadness. He looked out at the huge crowd. "Look at him, my children. The man who left this girl alone in the wild has come back to ask for her forgiveness. But we do not forgive the scared. Guards, please take this man out of our place." 3 big men stepped forward from the shadows on the sides of the stage. Randy did not flinch. He reached into the open bag at Cleo's feet and pulled out 2 large bunches of printed papers. "My name is Randy Travis," Randy shouted, his voice loud and clear over the noise of the crowd, ignoring Vaughn completely. "I am Hayden's father, and the man on that stage, the one holding a needle to my daughter's back, is a fraud. His real name is Percy Worthington. He is not a street artist. He is not someone who survived hardship. He is the son of a rich hedge fund manager from Connecticut, and he is playing a cruel fake game with all your lives." Randy threw the big piles of papers high into the air. The strong wind picked up the hundreds of pages and spread them over the crowd like a heavy snow. The cult members quickly reached up and caught the papers as they fell. The loud music kept playing from the speakers, but the spell the crowd was under was broken immediately. People began looking closely at the papers in their hands. "What is this?" a young girl near the front asked, staring without understanding at a printed bank statement. "Read it!" Cleo shouted as she stepped next to Randy and threw another big bunch of papers into the middle of the crowd. "Read the truth. He took every word he ever said from someone else. The manifesto you say every night. The ideas about life being just an illusion. He copied it all from David Corliss, a troubled poet from Seattle who died 10 years ago. Look, it's right there in your hands, every word. He stole your whole belief system." On the stage, Vaughn's pale face turned a deep, dark red, full of anger and fear. The calm, quiet leader was gone. "Do not look at those papers," Vaughn shouted into the microphone. His voice cracked and lost its smooth, controlled sound. "This is a lie. It is made by greedy people who want to ruin our purity. Throw those papers into the fire. Burn them now." but no one moved toward the fire. The large crowd stayed quiet, except for the soft sound of many people reading the clear, hard truth written on the pages in their hands. They saw the money accounts. They saw the school records from expensive private schools. They saw the side-by-side comparisons of the stolen Seattle manifesto. "He is a parasite!" Cleo shouted, pointing her finger right at Vaughn. "He doesn't understand your pain. He bought that theater with his father's money. He uses your troubles because he is an empty, sad little rich boy who wanted to control you, and you are just his puppets." Vaughn dropped the microphone. It hit the wooden stage with a loud screech. He stepped to the edge of the platform, his chest rising and falling fast, eyes wild and moving quickly over the crowd watching him. The full, blind love he had counted on for 3 years was gone. Now they looked at him with confusion, disgust, and a growing, dangerous anger. "You stupid, ungrateful people!" Vaughn yelled, no longer holding the microphone. He shouted like a frightened animal with no place to run. "I gave you a home! I gave you a real reason to live when the world turned its back on you. I made this safe place for you, and you will let this rough, violent man tell you who I am." Randy said nothing. He just stood there, arms crossed tightly, watching Vaughn's proud image break into pieces. Sarah stepped out from behind Randy's big frame. She pulled the heavy hood off her head, showing her bruised, tired face in the firelight. She looked straight up at the man who had taken her place. "You are nothing, Percy," Sarah said quietly, but her voice was sharp and full of hate that reached the stage perfectly. "I taught you everything you know. I taught you how to break a person's mind and how to take control of a room, and you are so weak that as soon as the lights come on, you fall apart completely. You are a fake, and your time is over." Vaughn stared at Sarah, his jaw shaking hard. The fake appearance was gone. The followers whispered to each other, dropping the papers on the ground and stepping back, moving away from the stage. The group was falling apart right before their eyes. Vaughn turned quickly to look at Hayden, who was still kneeling on the rough wood, swaying a bit, lost in a fog from drugs. Without his big crowd, without his stolen ideas, and without his mask, the real Percy Worthington was clear. There was no cold, smart trick left, no clever mind games, only a cruel, selfish, and very weak man who had just lost what mattered most to him. He walked across the stage and grabbed Hayden by the hair, pulling her head back hard. Hayden made a soft, confused sound, her eyes blinking fast against the bright firelight. "This is your fault!" Vaughn shouted right into her face, his spit flying. His usual calm, polite way of speaking was gone. Now, he sounded like a child having a wild, angry fit. "You brought them here! You useless little fool! You couldn't even break free from your dad, could you? I saved you! I gave you something to live for! And you let him come in and spoil everything!" Hayden looked up at him, her mind cloudy and struggling to understand what was happening. This was not the calm, kind man who used to say gentle things and tell her she was special. This was a sweaty, shouting stranger holding her roughly by the hair. "Vaughn?" Hayden whispered, her voice shaky. "You're hurting me." "My name is not Vaughn," he shouted, clearly losing control. He pulled his arm back. With a hard slap, he hit her face. The pain was sharp and sudden. She fell sideways, landing hard on the rough wooden floor. She gasped loudly. A deep sound came from Randy, more like a growl than a human shout. He moved quickly to the stage, grabbing the edge and pulling himself up. On the floor, Hayden pushed herself up on her elbows and touched her cheek. It burned with the harsh truth of what had just happened. She looked up at the man over her. Suddenly, her foggy, confused mind cleared. The dreamlike state that had made her believe and obey for weeks shattered. Vaughn didn't hit her with careful control, like some kind of cruel plan. He hit her because he was angry and lost control. He didn't care for her. He hated her for ruining what he wanted. For the first time, Hayden saw the truth. The small, selfish boy hiding behind the tough act. "You fake," Hayden said quietly, finding her old, sharp voice. She looked at him with clear eyes full of strong anger. "You're just a rich kid pretending." Vaughn's face twisted in pure rage. He looked at the crowd, then at Randy climbing the stage, and finally at the 3 guards standing around. "Stop them!" Vaughn screamed, pointing at Randy and Hayden. "Stop them and don't let them leave!" The 3 big guards moved without a word. The crowd of followers ran quickly into the dark woods, full of fear. But the paid men had a job to do. They rushed across the wooden platform. 2 of them pulled large hunting knives from their belts. Randy reached the top of the stage just as the first guard jumped at him. Randy didn't try to hit him. Instead, he lowered his shoulder, stepped close, and pushed hard into the man's chest. They fell onto the wooden boards in a tight, rough struggle. The knife slid across the stage. Randy quickly started hitting the man's face with short, strong elbows, not paying attention to the second guard coming behind him. The third guard was a big, bearded man holding a 6-inch blade. He ignored Randy completely. Following Vaughn's loud, panicked pointing, the man ran straight toward Hayden. Hayden was still on her hands and knees, trying to get up. Her hands were tied loosely. She had no place to run. She looked up, her eyes wide with fear, as the big man raised his knife high, aiming straight at her chest. "Hayden!" Randy shouted, struggling to shake off the guard on his back, but he was stuck. He couldn't reach her in time. The knife began to swing down. Suddenly, a flash of black fabric flew across the stage. Sarah didn't stop or shout. She didn't think about the danger or her chance to survive. With pure, deep care as a mother, she threw her tired, hurting body right in front of the knife. There was a heavy, sick sound as the blade hit her. The big guard grunted, surprised, as Sarah's body hit him, stopping the move. The knife went deep into Sarah's back, cutting through her thick hoodie and into her lungs. Sarah gasped sharply. Her eyes opened wide, staring right at Hayden's face, just a few inches away. For a short, frozen moment, the world seemed to stop. The loud music disappeared. The bright campfires faded. "Mom?" Hayden whispered, her voice small and scared like a frightened child. Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lips moved slightly, and dark blood flowed from her mouth, falling softly onto Hayden's pale face and bare shoulders. The guard pulled the knife out of Sarah's back with a quick, rough motion. Sarah fell forward, her weak body hitting the wooden floor with a heavy sound, covering Hayden underneath. The blood spread quickly on the rough wood, clear and impossible to ignore. It wiped away all the lies and tricks that Vaughn had used. "No!" Randy shouted, his voice full of deep pain and anger. The guard on top of him froze, afraid. Randy pushed the man off him like he was nothing. He got up fast and grabbed a knife from the floor, ready to fight anyone on the stage. But he didn't have to. Underneath her mother's hurting body, Hayden's strong will finally came out. The warm blood on her face was like a harsh reminder of the truth. She was not a fragile object or a victim. She was a fighter. She saw her mother hurt on a dirty stage because of a cruel young man. Hayden pushed Sarah's heavy body away and stood up, her hands still tied loosely in front of her. She didn't run or hide. She stared at Vaughn, who was stepping back toward the edge of the stage, his eyes wide with fear because the situation turned dangerous. Hayden let out a loud, fierce scream. She reached for a heavy metal microphone stand in the middle of the stage, holding it with both bound hands. She swung the heavy pole with all her anger, pain, and hate. The metal stand hit Percy Worthington in the face. The sound of it breaking was loud and clear. Vaughn was thrown through the air, falling off balance, and landed weakly at the edge of the stage, quiet and scared. The powerful man was now hurt and helpless. Percy slumped onto the rough wooden floor. He rolled to his side, his hands shaking as they held his injured face. Blood poured between his fingers and onto the stage beneath him. He made soft, weak noises like someone trapped and frightened. His clean white shirt was soaked with blood and dirt from the stage he had built to make himself important. Hayden stood above him, breathing hard and fast. The metal microphone stand dripped with the marks of the fight. The drugs had completely left her system, cleared away by the hard, painful sight of her mother, hurt just a few feet away. Percy looked up at her. His dark, proud eyes were now wide, full of raw, simple fear. He pushed himself backward with his elbows, kicking his fancy boots against the wooden floor, trying hard to get away. He tried to talk, trying to use his usual commanding voice, but his injured jaw only made a strange, rough sound. Hayden didn't strike him again. She did not have to. She just stood there, looking down at him with pure disgust. "Look at you," Hayden said. Her voice was calm but sharp, cutting through the quiet sounds of the clearing. "Look at the great and mighty Vaughn. You sit in your fancy theater starving girls. You keep us awake for days until our minds break and we see things that aren't real. You put collars around our necks and say they make us better. You told me my father left because I was broken and worthless. You stood in front of hundreds of people and read my private diaries out loud just to hurt me more. You made me believe you were the only one who knew how much I hurt." Percy whimpered, leaning his back against a tall wooden speaker, shaking hard. "But you didn't break me," Hayden said, stepping closer. She was taller than him now, holding firmly onto the metal pole. "You only used drugs to control me, but the drugs are gone now, Percy. You are just a spoiled, weak, rich kid who had to steal a dead addict's note to seem deep. My mother was hurt for me. What have you ever done for anyone? You only take and take. You made a whole belief system about pain, but the moment you got hurt even a little, you acted like a scared child. You are fake, and you are afraid." The few followers left in the clearing stood still, silent. They looked at the stage. They looked at the papers stained with blood in their hands, then at their leader crying and begging on the wooden boards. His power disappeared in an instant. Cleo stepped forward to the edge of the stage. She looked out at the big crowd of teenagers and people without homes. "Do you see him?" Cleo shouted, pointing right at Percy. "Do you see your strong leader? Look at him hurt and shaking on the ground. I called the police 10 minutes ago. I didn't just report a noise complaint. I told them there was a big, dangerous fight going on. They are not just sending a few police cars. They are sending the riot team. Anyone who stays here in this clearing will go to jail for trying to hurt someone." The crowd suddenly grew quiet and scared. "Your leader won't help you," Cleo said, her voice hard and determined. "He will call his rich lawyers far away, and he will let all of you take the blame to save himself. Run! Run now before they catch you." Far away, the loud sound of police sirens echoed through the dark pine trees. That was the last straw. The large group of followers turned and ran. They ran blindly into the dark woods, dropping the papers they had taken, pushing each other in their rush to get away from the flashing lights. Even the 3 big security guards dropped their gear and ran into the trees, leaving Percy alone on the stage. Randy didn't move. He fell to his knees on the wooden floor covered in blood next to Sarah. Sarah lay on her side. Her pale face was covered in bruises, and she looked very weak. Her breathing was rough and wet. Blood spread quickly under her big black hoodie, soaking into the wood. Hayden dropped the microphone stand. It hit the floor with a loud noise. She fell onto her knees beside Randy, her hands shaking as she touched her mother's pale cheek. "Mom!" Hayden cried, her tough, cold look gone. "Mom, why did you do that? Why did you protect him?" Sarah opened her good eye slowly. She looked at her daughter, then at Randy. Her lips moved, showing teeth stained with blood. "Because I owed you," Sarah said softly. Her voice was weak but clear. She wasn't crying. "I owed both of you. I am a sick woman, Hayden. I let darkness take over my mind. I liked the pain. I liked the shame. I brought that troubled boy into our home, and I taught him how to hurt others. I am the reason you were on this stage tonight with that collar. I can never take back what I did. The harm I caused this family will never go away." Sarah coughed, and some blood landed on the wood. Randy quickly pressed his hands on the large wound on her back, trying to stop the bleeding. "Be quiet, Sarah," Randy said, his voice breaking with guilt. "Save your strength. Help is coming. You're not going to die here." "Don't tell me what to do, Randy," Sarah whispered, a small, sad smile on her damaged face. "I have to say this, and you both need to hear me. I couldn't fix the pain I caused you, but I could stop it. That was my job as your mother. I made the problem, and I had to face it. I don't expect you to forgive me, Hayden. I don't want your forgiveness. I only want you to live." Hayden bent down, resting her forehead against Sarah's chest, crying quietly into her mother's stained clothes. "I forgive you. I forgive you, Mom. Just stay with me, please." Suddenly, the bright red and blue lights of the police cars flashed through the trees, lighting up the large clearing. Spotlights shone on the wooden stage. Officers with heavy gear moved quickly on the dirt, shouting orders. Paramedics hurried to the stage with their bags and stretcher. Randy stepped aside and let them work. He stood, wiping the blood from Sarah's clothes onto his dirty jeans. He looked at Percy Worthington. The rich boy sat in a puddle of his own blood, his hands held tightly behind him by 2 police officers. He was crying weakly as they pulled him away. The fight was over. The theater was empty. The hospital room in downtown Richland was cold and plain. The walls were white and bare. There was no decoration or flowers. The room only held the constant beep of the heart monitor beside the bed. Sarah sat up against the pillows. Her left arm was in a heavy medical sling, her shoulder unable to move. Doctors had worked for 6 hours to fix the serious damage the knife caused to her lung and the nerves nearby. She lived, but the nerve damage in her arm would stay. Her face still had dark bruises, but the swelling went down enough for both eyes to open. Hayden sat in a simple plastic chair next to the bed. She wore a clean gray sweatshirt and loose jeans. The heavy black makeup and the bold, tough clothes were gone. She looked tired, but her eyes were clear. "The police visited my motel room this morning," Hayden said calmly in the quiet room. "They officially charged Percy with assault, kidnapping, and drug crimes. Cleo gave the detectives a big stack of papers and the stolen manifesto. The Marquis is all boarded up now. His gang broke apart overnight. Most of the kids he got are now in jail, waiting for their parents to pay bail. Good, Sarah said, speaking clearly. She moved a little and winced from the pain in her ribs. Percy will hire fancy lawyers. He might avoid a long prison time because his father can pay off the judge, but his good name in the underground world is ruined. He could never pretend to be the wise teacher again. He was a joke. Silence hung between them for a long time. It wasn't very comfortable, but it wasn't full of anger like it had been for the past 3 years. "Where will you go, Mom?" Hayden asked simply. "You can't go back to the trailer park. You can't work here anymore." Sarah looked at her arm that she couldn't move. She didn't hesitate or try to soften her answer. "I'm leaving tomorrow morning," she said, without any sadness in her voice. "I talked to a social worker an hour ago. I'm checking into a secure mental health center in Portland. It's far away, and I will stay there for a long time." Hayden held tight to the plastic arms of her chair. "You don't have to do that. You saved my life. You've paid your share." "No, I haven't," Sarah said firmly. "Getting hurt doesn't fix a mental illness, Hayden. I am very sick. The need to hurt myself and pull others down. It's a problem in my mind. If I stay here and try to act like a normal mom, I will slip back. I will find trouble again, and the same bad things will happen. Right now, I am poison to you." Sarah reached out with her good hand and softly covered Hayden's. "I can't stay by your side," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I can't be the mom who cooks dinner or helps you find your first home. But I did what mattered most that day in the clearing. I kept you safe from the danger. Now, my job is to get out of your life so you can heal without me. You will leave this hospital, get in your dad's truck, and start over. And you will do it without me." Hayden said nothing. She understood the hard truth in those words. There were no tears or dramatic hugs. There were no promises of family trips in the future. Hayden just turned her hand and squeezed her mother's fingers tightly.
Bye, Mom.
"Goodbye, Mom," Hayden whispered. "Goodbye, Hayden," Sarah said with a soft smile. "Stay strong." An hour later, Randy sat behind the wheel of his old, worn-out pickup truck in the hospital parking lot. The engine made a steady, familiar sound. The cab smelled faintly of old coffee and fuel. The passenger door opened. Hayden climbed in and closed the heavy door with a firm click. She looked straight ahead through the windshield. Randy said nothing about the talk with Sarah. He put the truck into gear and drove out of the parking lot. They moved through the quiet streets of Richland without saying a word. Randy followed the familiar roads, passing the old high school and quiet neighborhoods. Finally, he pulled the truck onto a gravel area by the banks of the Columbia River. He parked and turned off the engine. They sat inside, looking through the windshield at the wide, dark river flowing through the dry land. This was the same place where Randy had stood on his wedding day. It was also the place where his memories had come rushing back just a week ago. Randy held the steering wheel tightly. Then he turned and looked at his daughter. "I'm not going to say sorry again," Randy said, his voice low and full of strong feelings. "Saying sorry doesn't fix what's broken. But I'm going to tell you what really happened 3 years ago. And I'll tell you what will happen now." Hayden looked at him with a face that showed nothing. "I ran away because I was scared," Randy said honestly. "When I found out your mom was sick, I couldn't face it. My pride wouldn't let me stay. Instead of staying and dealing with it, I packed a bag and left. Running was easier than facing that my perfect family wasn't perfect at all. I told myself it was better for you if I wasn't around. I left you alone with people who should not have been there, and because of that, Percy Worthington got inside your head." He let go of the wheel and turned fully toward her. "I can't change the last 3 years, Hayden," he said, his voice full of truth. "I can't undo what happened. But I'm telling you now, looking right at you, I'm not running anymore. I took a job at the labs. I found a small apartment on the south side of town. This is where I'm staying. You're 21 now. You don't have to live with me or talk to me every day. But you will never look back and see an empty space. If you call, I will answer. If you need me, I will come to you. I'm your father, and I'm not leaving." Hayden stared at him. His honest words broke through the walls she had built up. She looked at his tired face, the signs of struggle and the strong hope in his eyes. She didn't say she forgave him right away. She didn't hug him or cry. What had happened was too deep for quick fixes. Instead, Hayden slowly reached her hand across the seat. She touched the worn edge of Randy's shirt. She held on to his shirt lightly, just like she did when she was 5 years old walking through busy stores. It was a small, quiet action, but it meant everything. Randy looked down at her hand on his shirt. He didn't say anything. Slowly, he put his big, rough hand gently on her head. He kept his hand there, giving her the quiet, deep comfort she had missed for 3 years. The pain had started to fade, making room for a new beginning, built on truth and care. If this story about moving through hard times touched you, please subscribe to the channel Infidelity Director for more stories about the deep parts of being human. What do you think? Did Sarah's choice really make up for her past mistakes, or does Randy carry more of the blame for leaving long ago? Thank you to everyone who watched this strong and emotional story. Remember, real strength does not come from tricks or running away from our biggest problems. It comes from having the brave heart to face them and take care of the ones we love. No matter how broken a family feels, true healing begins the moment we choose to stand firm and try again.